Okay, today in making your keyboard sound great, we're going to focus on guitar sounds. And they're among the most different instruments from a piano, even though they're both technically stringed instruments. The piano is controlled with a mechanism that's played with the tips of the fingers, and it's a lot of stuff in between the pressing of the key and the note sounding. A guitar shortcuts all of that and goes right from finger to string. And guitars are a beautiful and very versatile instrument. You've heard classical guitar sounds, you've heard jazz guitar, there's certainly rock and roll guitar and grunge rock guitar and country guitar and steel guitar. There's some subsets of the guitar, similar instruments, but have a little different sound, things like banjo and dobro and the harp, things like that. Those are all direct fingertip to string sound reproducers, and they're played entirely differently than the piano. So I'm going to go to my keyboard here and we're going to talk about how to make those sounds sound like the real deal on your instrument. Okay, so we're going to start with a basic guitar sound. We're going to start off with a 6-string acoustic guitar sound. Acoustic, if you don't know the term, it just means that it's not electronic, it's not powered, it's just a hollow box with strings and a neck and that sort of sound. So there are all sorts of ways to manipulate the guitar sound on a real guitar. They can tune the guitar differently. They can make each string a different note other than what traditionally is used. But we're going to stay with mainstream because that's the whole idea here, is to make things authentic. So on a traditional regular box guitar, there are 6 strings. The bottom string is E, and the next string is A, the next string is D, then we have a G, and then we have a B, and then we have an E. Now that's an open strum. That's with nothing on the neck. I'm not fretting anything, I'm not clasping anything on the neck like that. It's just an open guitar strum. Really doesn't sound like a whole lot. But because it's tuned like that traditionally, guitar players love to play in keys that are close to the open tuning. For example, if this is the open tuning with E, A, D, G, B, E, an E major chord, which is sort of unusual for a beginning piano player or organist or keyboardist, that's very comfortable for them. Something like E flat is something they're not as used to. Besides that, if the lowest note on the guitar is E, we can, of course, clamp the neck, which makes the string shorter, and make that note higher and higher and higher as we go up. But we can't go any lower without changing the tuning pin on the end of the nut on the end of the fretboard. So we're going to stay with E. Now, one thing to know about guitars is that being with individual strings, they can't really play too many notes at exactly the same time. There are some professional stylists that will be able to pluck 2 notes together, but typically guitar players strum. And the way the guitar is held, if you don't play guitar, it's held with the lowest string at the top, closest to the face of the player, and when they strum, they typically start strumming down, away from the face, which means the lower notes are going to be heard first. Now, one of the things I'm doing here is I'm playing the notes not exactly at the same time, almost, but not exactly. When I do the E chord, for example, you'll see me very quickly roll from the lowest note to the highest note. That's because that's the way a real guitar player does it. If I've just played those notes like I would do that on a piano, it doesn't sound quite as authentic because a guitarist can't do that. So let's stay with the style of the guitar, which is even chords that are essentially all one chord. There's a very fast space between each note. Now, some guitarists strum at a slower rate. What they'll do is they'll okay, so that's strumming, but not meant to be a quick chord. So they're basically just picking the notes of the guitar one at a time. So that gives it an air of authenticity. Note the range, though. Remember that we can, on a guitar, we can pinch the string down on the fretboard of the guitar and make the string higher and higher and higher and higher and higher. But we can't go any lower, not on the fly anyway, because it would require making the string looser. So E is going to be our bottom note. And by E, I'm referring to using this particular keyboard as an example. This is 61 notes. I'm using the E above the lowest note. What we're looking for here is the E below middle C. So that's ideally what we're looking for guitar sounds. So one of the fun things I used to do when I was playing out a lot, I would, if I was going to do a guitar feature, I would first tell the audience, well, hang on a minute, I've got to tune my guitar, and I would play those tuning notes. And then I would use my pitch wheel, which a lot of the keyboards have, either a dial or a little wheel down here on the far left, and it enables me to bend and wobble that note a little bit. So I would do something like this. And have a little fun with it, and people would laugh because it sounded like I was tuning a guitar. But what that really did was let them get the idea that it really sounds like a guitar by even doing the prep work that a guitar player has to do. So when we talk about the guitar sound, that we're limited in range on a guitar. There are only so many notes that sound practical. We talked about the low end range, and most keyboards have at least 61 notes. So when you get up into here, it doesn't sound as authentic. If you want to stay with the true authentic mainstream guitar sound, stay in the middle. So that sort of thing keeps you in the regular range of the guitar. About 3.5 octaves is the exact range of a real acoustic guitar tuned normally. So that's a good idea to think about that. Now, guitars have natural decay. And decay simply means that when I strike a note on a guitar, if I were to play just one string, pluck it and hold it, that sound would die out after a few seconds. So the same thing goes with a piano. I've got this lower keyboard down here tuned to a piano. If I hold that note down, it will decay. And so long notes on a guitar or a piano or any instrument that decays, if it's a really slow piece of music and the note is really long, you're going to lose, that note's going to lose its presence after a second or two. So there's ways to do that, to make that note last longer. One of those ways is to do some ornamentation with the note, restrike the note. You find this a lot in Spanish music. That kind of thing. You can also add to that sound, and we do this a lot even with piano. We're not really doing piano right now, but if I want to have a long note on the piano, which is decaying on me here, I can add another sound to that doesn't decay, like strings. So if I were to put piano and strings together, the piano sound has died out, but the strings linger on. So that gives you some more endurance. The piano makes a beautiful strike, the guitar makes a beautiful strike, and let that turn around. There's also other ornamentation that we can do with the guitar, depending on the type of guitar that you're playing. As I said, the Spanish guitar sound is typically highly ornamental. Things like, that's called a turn or a gruppetto, and it's basically centered around one note. They just play around that note a little bit to make that C note, in this case, that presence last a little bit longer. So there are other types of guitars that are played differently, and we're going to talk briefly about some of these now, and we're going to go into detail on some of the guitar alternatives in the next little video. But that was a folk guitar, basically a steel string guitar. Typically in jazz music, we'll hear of or sometimes classical music, of a nylon string guitar. These are guitars where the actual strings are of a softer material. You hear how much softer that is. On a jazz guitar, we'll find the same thing. Now, jazz guitar typically has some amplification. It's really a hollow body wooden guitar that's amplified, but the string sound is not as bitey as it is on the steel string guitar. So that's an authentic thing. Then we have things like the pedal steel. We'll talk about that in the next video. There's a whole lot to talk about if you like country music or any sort of music that uses the steel guitar. We're going to devote the better part of an entire video to that and a couple of other country guitar sounds. So there's a lot to know. We only covered basically acoustic 6-string guitars. We'll go into 12-string, steel guitar, all that sort of thing in the next video. If you liked what you heard today, please like the video and subscribe to this channel, and we'll update you every time we have another short video. These all run around 10 or 12 minutes, and it's something you can do before you go to work or when you get home, and it doesn't take up the whole evening, or you might want to watch 2 or 3. Also, check out my website, hankharrisonmusic.com. Subscribe to our newsletter. We have a lot of events going on. So, again, we'll see you on the other side. Thanks a lot for spending some time with me today.